I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here with Mary E. Knippel to talk about her article in the May-June issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Mary, welcome. Thanks for being here with me.
Oh, thanks, Ginny. I'm excited to be here.
Well, before we start that conversation about your article, would you tell our viewers a little bit about you and your work?
I am Mary Knippel, the Soul Story Mentor, which means that I use my 40 years as a journalist to help coaches and entrepreneurs and healers to articulate their soul story, which is the message that they are here to deliver to connect with who needs them and to leave a legacy.
And your article is called Honoring Your Soul Story. So for anyone who's wondering what a soul story is, you wrote about your own soul story. Can you share a little bit of that with us, your story? Because I think that will help our viewers know what you mean when you say soul story.
Well, my soul story is that I grew up in a small town. I always wanted to write, started keeping a journal when I was 11. But I wasn't encouraged to be a writer because that wasn't realistic. It wasn't that somebody from a farming community was going to, publish something that was going to have an impact on the world. And I was not going to believe that was the end all for me, that we all live so many life experiences that change the trajectory of our lives. And that's what a soul story is. It's how you have taken what you learned from a life experience and used it to learn a new skill, to create a new life for yourself. I've had breast cancer 3 times, and after the second time, I wrote my memoir, The Secret Artist, where I used writing as a healing tool within, the pages, those pages, but everything I've done personally and professionally started in my journal. So I am a big champion of journaling and getting your thoughts down on paper and having that conversation with yourself to know what you're thinking and how you want to deal with what's next in your life.
And so your soul story, would you say then the kind of the bottom line of your soul story was this writer who wanted to emerge and share her gifts with the world, and to help other women share their gifts with the world? You didn't know that at the time when you were
Oh,
11,
well, no,
15 even, right?
I used writing in the background, because as women, we are really good at championing somebody else. That we are the support team, and I've always been, and I still am, a champion, a cheerleader for others to tell their stories. And after my second breast cancer experience, it was obvious to me that writing was how I coped with things, and I had a gift. I had a knack for asking really good questions. As a journalist, I would end an interview with, what do you want the world to know about you that you don't think they know, or something where they would give me feedback and say, nobody's asked me anything like that before, or I've never talked about this before. And that's what always gave me goosebumps, because then I knew that they were going deeper with their story. They were making connections that they didn't see before. And that was because I was listening to the whispers from my soul, from my intuition, that this is what's next for them. Ask them this.
Mm.
And then it opened up a whole new part of their story.
I think there's another skill you must have also, and that means that you're a great listener,
Oh,
because you
yes.
really have to hear what isn't being said so you can
Hear
ask
what isn't being said. Absolutely.
that great question that has them either in tears or kind of going, whoa, nobody's ever asked me that before, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And which leads to more conversation. And the aha moments is like, oh, you mean that is what makes me extraordinary. I just discounted that because I thought that was everybody did that. Everybody had that.
Mhm.
And the truth is that we have a story that nobody else can have because we have a story that's inside us, that our experiences of how we have lived it. So we can only tell that story from the inside out. Nobody else on this earth can do that for us.
There's a saying out there that everything has already been written, but not by you.
Yes, that's
And I
it.
think people, do you find that women especially can get into that? Well, nobody wants to hear what I have to say, or like you say, somebody's already experienced that, or well,
Right.
somebody's already written about that, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, right?
And that breaks my heart because they listen to that inner critic or somebody that is trying to be helpful and says, "Oh, yours isn't big enough. It doesn't have uh, won't really matter." And my response to that is, how many people have you read that made an impact on you? And what if they hadn't written what they did? You wouldn't be the person you are. So you have a responsibility to share what you have to say, what you learned, because you don't know that what you have to say would be the exact words that someone needs to hear. and and I get emotional about this. And so you can hear it in my voice, and I'm not seeing the tears yet, but they're coming. And I was just speaking to another group last week, and I got to the part where it's like, your story matters. And I can't say this enough, that nobody can tell your story except you, because you're the only one who knows it from the inside out. And what you learned, how you have lived with it and turned your lemons into lemonade. No, somebody else will pick up on it. And yes, a lot of women have had cancer, had breast cancer. This statistic is 1 in 8. When I say I've had it for the third time and I'm healthy, however, that puts a face on it. It's not a
Mhm.
statistic anymore. It's, here's somebody in front of you that is living and breathing, and saying, she thinks of it as a gift. What kind of a fantasy life does she have? It's not fantasy, it's my reality.
Mhm.
That writing is a healing tool. I wrote in my journal about how I have to go have another mammogram. I have to have, what's a good what, and facing the fear and living through it and using that as a catalyst to say, I have something to say, and I want to be the cheerleader for the women who don't think that they have a story, to help them find the extraordinary piece of them that they have discounted and said, that's ordinary. I don't have anything to say. They do. They do.
That can be a game changer, can't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the gals who was in the anthology, Written in Her Own Words, she hadn't written anything before. She'd had businesses, but she didn't didn't write any nonfiction where she was telling her story.
Mhm.
And because we had a relationship, and I was talking about, I'm going to have an anthology, said, because it's you and because I know you're going to help me craft this and it's going to be my story, then I'm in. And so we work together, and that's what I love being able to do, is to work one-on-one, to have a conversation, not fire questions out in front of somebody and say, okay, fill in these blanks and here's your story. No, it doesn't work that way. We follow the story according to the conversation that we're having.
Mhm.
And she revealed something that she hadn't talked to even her kids about.
Wow. So it was very healing for her too, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens when we're willing to kind of let down our guard a bit and trust someone like you to show up and be vulnerable and to share our soul story. And you write that our soul story is the one that matters.
Yes.
And we probably have a bunch of soul stories in there, but there's probably, do you find that there's one that matters maybe more than some of the others, where it's the one that may have the greater impact?
I think there are multiple soul stories, and there's and it just like our lives, we have seasons, and it may be the one that this is coming to the surface more often, and it depends on who you're in front of.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
listening to the whisper that this is the story that is going to really touch where she is right now and what she needs to hear.
Mm.
I was in, um, when I was speaking recently, I told the story about one of my clients who um, was reluctant to talk about, her first job, and and she, we were working on her website copy, her bio, and she was very active and national recognized in her industry with awards and things like that. And I said, this on your website, this is a chance for you to talk about all of your history. And so she said, well, okay, and the website's okay, but she was invited to introduce herself on a panel. And I encouraged her to tell that story because they wanted them to tell a story that they hadn't heard before. And I said, this gives a different light. And reluctantly, she did tell the story. And it was about her babysitting as a 10-year-old. And she was babysitting a newborn. And I asked her, when we were doing this, how could an adult trust a 10-year-old with a newborn? And she said, well, she saw me with my handicapped brother, so of course I could do it. And
Mm.
after she introduced herself, she had come up to me later and she said there were more women that wanted to talk to me after that, even though we'd been in this group for a long time. And I said, yeah, that's because they saw a different side of you. They saw more humanity, because she's very good at being in sales.
Mm.
But this showed that she had that capacity as a 10-year-old. And when I told that story to the group that I just spoke at, I had one gentleman come up to me and said, that really made me think about, it sparked something that I could talk about too, that seems to be ordinary, and that could be something that makes me extraordinary.
Mm.
That's what I love being able to bring out, is you seeing that thing that everybody has, but it's how you did it, and the circumstances that showed off your humanity and underscores the know, like, and trust factor.
So yes, I agree with all of that. And it's not just from the standpoint of getting our words out there and feeling like proud that, oh, they've been in a book, they've been published, they're in an anthology, but also we can use those stories with if we have a business, right? So
Oh,
this man was looking at ways that he could let the people that either his potential clients or whatever know him on a deeper level.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's so many ways that business coaches might have said your personal story doesn't belong in your business, and I 100% disagree. Your
Mhm.
personal story is the heart and soul of your business. It's your why. It's what keeps you doing what you're doing and keeps you wanting to improve and find new ways to serve who needs you.
And here's what I believe, that if we put that out there and there are people who maybe it doesn't resonate with, but more than that, maybe there are people who are critical of it, they're not our people.
No,
They're not the people we're supposed to be serving in the first place. So it's also a way of, seeing, putting things out there and seeing who sticks, right? Or
right.
who's curious
You're
about it,
being
who
your
wants to know
authentic
more.
self,
Exactly,
and they're
exactly.
drawn to you.
Now you believe that we all have a soul story, even when we think that we don't. How might we, I know that you help people with this, but how might we begin, someone who doesn't think they have a soul story or wonders what it might be? What's a beginning spot for that, for them to start to do some introspection?
I believe that if you commit to writing in a journal for 5 minutes every day, set the timer and just let your hand move across the page and have a conversation with yourself, your soul, your heart. Just disconnect the head, disconnect that inner critic that's going to say you spelled that wrong, or you that's a run-on sentence. This, nobody else is going to read this. This is for you to have a conversation with yourself for just 5 minutes and ask the question, what does my soul want me to know right now? If you're entertaining the idea of writing a book, what does my book want me to know right now? And just set the timer and let your hand go until the timer goes off. Don't worry about how much time has gone by. Just wait. And if the same comment or phrase keeps coming, keep writing it, because there may be some nuance, that some word that will pop up and it's like, oh, I need to pay attention to that. But if you build up that writing muscle, you'd be surprised. At the end of 5 minutes, you'll go, oh, I wanted to finish this thought. I want to go deeper with these details. And that's a way to start. It's a way to build the writing muscle, just like you wouldn't go to the gym and pick up the 50-pound weight. You'd start with a 5 and be consistent every day, 5 minutes, and see what happens.
Beautiful advice, because I'm sure that there are people who think that journal writing is just, it's just like, it's just, oh, I just wrote about what was going on in my life. That doesn't, why would that matter? But it's exactly what you're saying. It's exactly what matters, is what is going on with our life. And so for people who've journaled all along, maybe they go back and start to see if they see some patterns. Is that another
They
strategy?
could do that. They could do that, or they could start asking specific questions and taking a look at, what here we are and what season we're in, and maybe reflecting about what did I want to accomplish by this time, or look at things that are happening in the world. I mean, every day there's something to celebrate, as far as, what are we paying attention to. May is all about mothering and nurturing. How are you taking care of yourself? How are you nurturing what your dreams are and helping them to move forward?
Wow, what did I want to say next? Something came up for me. I know you and I've talked about this before, but there are those fears too of people, because they don't want to write about maybe something, the people are still alive. Maybe there's painful things they want to put out there.
Yeah.
And I'm always go back to the Anne Lamott quote that, if people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have acted better. Or,
They should have
but
treated you better.
treated you better. That's it. Yeah. And I know that's a consideration, but you can also do that in fiction, with fiction, right? You don't have to name names. I mean, if you want to get it out of you, what would you
Right. So
do?
the first step is to journal everything. Just you're not sharing this with anyone. You're not submitting it someplace. And when I was growing up, I started when I was 10, 11. And who did I write about? Who was cute on Wagon Train last night? But my brother was determined to read my journal. So if there's somebody that you're worried about, use initials, put it someplace where they're not going to find it. But if you're writing this for yourself, and it is a physical fact, you get those words out on the page, you get them out of your body, and you can move on. It has a healing effect. And if there's something that you're compelled to publish and you're worried about naming names, then maybe you do make it a work of fiction. There's truth in every piece of fiction that's out there.
Exactly. Had to come from somewhere, didn't it?
Yeah, it had to come from somewhere.
I don't remember now. I wish I did. If this came to me from one of the times that you were speaking at the On Purpose Woman Global Community, but I was going through some kind of exercise with someone who was talking about writing. Tell me if you remember this, so then I'll know it was you. And talking about journaling, and it was called a diary when I was little. And so I had a diary. I think I started it around the age of 10, and I realized that my mother was reading my diary. And I don't think it was you. I think I remember who it was now. And so I started making up stories that would upset her. But then she couldn't come to me and tell me they upset her.
No.
It's very much passive
Couldn't fess
aggressive
up.
thing I was doing, because she couldn't confess. But it also, I realized in that moment that it was affecting me writing today.
No.
There was still something back there that was saying, it's not safe to write the truth. It's
It's
not
not safe
safe,
to write the
you
truth.
know, but it hadn't been conscious. It'd never been conscious, but it was lurking there trying to be discovered. And
Mhm.
that was really eye-opening for me that it goes back that
Mhm.
far to something that is little, but it was a trust thing.
Yeah,
You
yeah, it
and
is.
I think children should always be able to have their privacy, and doesn't matter how old they are, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that has been a thing with me about, well, I can't write about that because that person, you know, no way I'm going to do that. So thanks for helping me remember that, because I think I'd forgotten it again. Maybe it's causing some writer's block now. Who knows? Well, Mary, once we've tapped into our soul story and idea of it, how might we honor it more? Because that's the title, honoring your soul story.
Just being aware that this is part of me. This is my voice, and this is my authentic self. And if you are somebody that's blogging, if you're somebody that has a newsletter, dropping it into sharing it with who your readers are. If you're a speaker, making it part of how you are engaging with people who are participating in your speaking events. It's a way that you have to be able to let others in on a little more of you, that you are transparent and vulnerable, because this is real and raw. And it also, I find it can be really the start of something beautiful and engaging, and in that it's like, oh, she had that happened to her, and look what she did with it. Maybe it's possible for me.
Yeah, yeah, so important. You know, one of my early speaking gigs, I told a story from the stage, and it wasn't a story that I was ashamed of by any means, but it was something that just showed that I was not far from perfect. You know, it was just one of those things I knew people could relate to because it tied very much into what I was talking about. And this woman who I didn't know, who was in the audience, came up to me later, and I made judgments about her because she looked extremely put together. And, you know, she told me she was a professional speaker with the National Speakers Bureau and all of that. And then she proceeds to tell me that I would have never told that story on myself.
Oh.
And, and I just shrunk for a moment. I
Uh,
felt so, but inside I thought, well, then it's probably a good thing you didn't do that.
hmm.
You know, I was able to kind of keep that little piece of it, but I was polite to her. And I didn't want to be polite. I wanted to say something just like that back. Or who do you think you are to come up here and tell me that now, right after I finished my talk, you know? But I realized that was way more about her than it was about the story that I told. It obviously made her uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It was tested in that moment, and I was really kind of proud that I was able to kind of see that, not fully, and it took me a little bit more time, that it didn't shut me down completely, because we can get shut down so
Yeah.
easily, can't we?
We
We,
can get
you
shut down,
know,
and so I didn't think that. I was shy, quiet Mary. Me as speaker. I had, and I'm just writing an article about being in the spotlight and 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 having taking center stage with your life.
mm,
And I remember standing on a platform, um, having all ears just geared to me. And the reality was, I was 10 years old. I was standing on this big rock at the end of the cornfield. And I was just preparing for when I was going to be a speaker, because but fast forward to 73 years old, it's just like, it's been a bumpy ride. However, I had this spark of this hope that I could do something different.
mm,
And I have. It's that the confidence is not always there. And what's bigger is that the women that I could have an impact on when I show up and do this. Because then it's less like, well, you learn to cry through, what you wanted to say, as opposed to being told, well, just practice until you don't cry. It's like, not going to happen with me because I don't know
No.
what I'm going to say and when the tears are going to come.
Or what question somebody might ask that
Yeah.
puts you there, because if there are people, again, it goes back to that, if there are people who are put off by your tears, they're not your people,
Not my people.
right? But someone will be so moved by that, and the permission that you're giving women, especially, to be real and to let those emotions show, because we both have backgrounds in predominantly male dominated industries, and couldn't show those emotions back there in those days without being ridiculed or
Oh yeah,
criticized,
they
or it
would.
could harm your career if somebody thought you were too emotional.
The engineers are just like, do you need to go home? Yeah, are you okay? It's just like,
Because they were so uncomfortable with it, they didn't know
uh,
what to do with it,
yeah.
right? But no, I'm so glad that things have changed enough that, but we need to be those models for other women to know that just lay it on the table, you know. And I so appreciate that about you, Mary, that you're willing to bring your heart and lay it out there and share it with us. And the joy that you have in doing this work, I mean, it's all over your face right now. You just have the most beautiful, like, um, it's more than joyful. I don't know. It's kind of almost a
Bliss.
surreal
I'm
kind
living
of
in my bliss.
bliss. You're living your bliss. Yes. And so, anything else you want to tell our viewers about this topic? And I want you to also tell them how they can find out more information about you.
Oh, this topic we have something unique that's ours alone, and that's our soul story.
Mhm.
And to be able to share it with the world, to offer hope to somebody else who is looking for a solution that we may have had. We we found a tool, we're using it. It's made us who we are. And that's what I encourage everybody to pick up a pen and have that conversation with your soul. Learn what it is that you your soul is waiting to tell you, and just take dictation. Don't think about it. Just let your hand move across
Mm.
the page and hear the whispers. My website is maryeeknippel.com. If you go /contact, you can get to my calendar, and I'd love to have a conversation. I have a workshop coming up on telling my untold story, or your soul story, the end of June. And we have another co-author book coming up, looking for women who would love support in telling that story. And I have a retreat here in California coastside coming up in March, every March. I I'm here to help you be authentic with the story that's yours alone to share.
And all of that information is on your website.
And all of that information is on the website.
So check out Mary's website. The link to that is also in the text of this video. And please go over and read Mary's article. Even if you've already read it, read it again, because I think it'll have a deeper impact on you, because she writes a whole lot more, about a whole lot more than we talked about today. We kind of went off in some other directions because I don't want to tell you everything about the article in these interviews. I want you to get to know the writer and the heart of the writer. And that will make you want to get to know them more, and to also go over there and check out their work. So thank you so much, Mary. And I do want to say something else real quick, is that you said something I don't think I've ever heard you say before, which is your soul, just sit and take dictation.
Yeah. Oh,
Your
yeah.
soul has things to tell us. So just
Right.
sit, be quiet, and start to write down what your soul is telling you. And, there might be people who say, well, how do I know that's my soul? Well, it doesn't matter whether you think it's your soul or not. Just write down what's coming to you, right? There's some
Absolutely.
truth. There's truth in
Absolutely.
there. There's
But
definitely truth in there.
you disconnect from your head,
Yeah.
let your hand move across the page and see what shows up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you could be very pleasantly surprised. Oh, thank you again, Mary. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the work that you do and how you impact so many women's lives with that work. Thank you for saying yes to all of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I want to thank anyone who's watching this. Thank you for watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. For more information on the On Purpose Woman Global Community and magazine, please check out the website, which is also in the text of this video. Also, if you want to see interviews with other women who are living their lives on purpose and making their unique impact, and you're not watching this on our YouTube channel, go over and check out our YouTube channel, which is the On Purpose Woman Global Community YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching.